Hello and welcome. This is a new episode from Arduino, and in this episode I'm showing to you this video about how I made Arduino motor PWM speed controller with LCD to show the speed feedback. So if you didn't yet subscribe, please subscribe to our channel to get the latest video. Here in this video I've made a simple circuit, a PWM controller with Arduino Uno to control that DC motor with a potentiometer, and I show the speed on an LCD, 16:2 LCD. I'll explain the circuit in details, and I'll leave the link to Tinkercad model and code in the video description. So here is the DC motor that we want to control using PWM signals with Arduino, and here is the potentiometer that we use to control the motor. Now let's see the connection. Here is the DC motor connected to its power source, 9-volt battery, and this is 10 kilo ohm resistor. As we've seen, and as we've seen in details how to use a transistor as a switch, we use Arduino to control that motor. So we need a switch between Arduino and DC motor, because that DC motor draws current that Arduino cannot withstand to supply that motor. So we use that transistor as a switch, as we've seen before. So here we connect the motor to the 9-volt battery through this 10 kilo ohm resistor and connected to the NPN transistor, the collector, and then the base of the transistor is connected to Arduino PWM pin number 9 through a 1 kilo ohm resistor. In this setup, that transistor works as a solid state switch, and here is the emitter connected to the circuit ground here on the LCD. Now let's see the LCD, how it's connected to Arduino. It's a 16:2 LCD. We connect to Arduino using 4 pins of data, DB4 to DB7 connected to pins 4 to 7 respectively, and enable pin connected to pin number 3, and RS register select connected to pin number 2. Here the read write connected to ground, and the contrast connected to ground through a 1 kilo ohm resistor, and of course the LED backlight LED cathode connected to the ground through a 1 kilo ohm resistor, and the backlight LED anode connected to VCC, and of course the ground connected to Arduino ground, and the VCC connected to Arduino 5 volts. Here is the potentiometer that we use to control the speed of the motor. There are 3 pins, terminal 1 and wiper, and terminal 2, one connected to 5 volts and the other terminal connected to the ground, and the wiper, and that's the variable resistance, the potentiometer connected to Arduino analog input A0. That's the circuit. Now we've seen all the circuit components. The battery is the power supply that supplies the voltage and current to the DC motor, and that resistor is a NPN BJT transistor, bipolar junction transistor, connected to Arduino to act as a transistor, as a solid state switch to control that DC motor, and that LCD connected using 4 pins of data to Arduino. Now let's see the simple code that uses PWM signals to control that DC motor. Here we start by including the LCD or liquid crystal display library, and then we define the constant that defines the LCD connection to Arduino. As we've seen, all those pins in details, and those 3 variables, the potentiometer variable, we initialize it to 0, the speed variable, and the percentage of the speed. Here in the setup function, we define the mode of the pins. Pin number 9 is the PWM output. We define it as output, and pin mode A0, analog input connected to the potentiometer, is defined as an input. Here we initialize the LCD using the begin function and define it as 16:2 LCD. And in the loop function, we start by initializing and reading the potentiometer value as the analog read from analog input A0, and also the speed. Here we use the map function that we use to map the value of the analog input that we know it takes values from 0 to 1023. We map it to 0 to the value of 0 to 255, and then the percentage also, we read that potentiometer value and we map it from 0 to 1023 to the percentage value from 0 to 100%. Then we use the LCD set cursor to 0 and 0, row and column 0, and then we print the speed message string, and then we print the speed variable. Here we also print a space, empty space, then we print the percentage and the percentage sign, and then we read the analog, and then we use analog write 9. On the pin number 9, we write the speed that controls the motor using PWM signals. We can also use a simple delay here of about maybe 100 milliseconds. Then we start the simulation and see the code. I hope it works. Okay, here is the speed is 100%. The motor is rotating at 100% as the speed is 255. That's the reading from the potentiometer. It's on its maximum value. As you can see here, it supplies the 5 volts that coming from Arduino right to the pin analog input A0. Here then we change that wiper, that potentiometer, to that value. We see that it's on the 0 position, 0 value. It's connected to the ground right here, the potentiometer, and the analog reading is 0, and also the percentage is 0. Now the motor is completely stopped, 0 RPM. Now we gradually increase the speed using PWM signals, and the motor is rotating according to the PWM speed, and the speed is displayed on the LCD. Here we've learned in this video about how to control a motor using PWM signals from Arduino Uno, using transistor as a switch and displaying the speed on an LCD. We've combined some things we've seen before and we used in one project as a controller. I leave the link to Tinkercad model and the code in the video description. So if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thank you and goodbye.